I was fixing the north fence when my phone rang that Tuesday morning. The October wind cut through my flannel shirt as I balanced the post-hole digger against my knee and answered. "Jake, you need to come to town." Sarah's voice sounded different, formal, distant. My sister had been back from Denver for 3 days, supposedly to help settle Mom and Dad's affairs after the accident. We'd barely spoken since the funeral. "I'm in the middle of repairs. Storm took out half the lawyer wants to read the will today, 2 o'clock. I wiped sweat from my forehead with the back of my work glove. "Can't it wait? Calving season's coming and I've got..." "Jake." Her tone stopped me cold. "Just be there." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, then at the endless stretch of fence that needed mending. 25 years I'd been working this land. Started when I was 17, right after high school, when Dad's back gave out and he needed help. Sarah had already left for college by then, chasing dreams in the city. I'd never left. Through droughts and floods, market crashes and good years, I'd stayed, bled for this place, loved it like it was part of my soul. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of hay and cattle. I looked toward the house where I'd grown up, where Mum used to ring the dinner bell that still hung silent on the porch. Dad's old truck sat in the same spot where he'd parked it the morning they died, a head-on collision with a drunk driver on Highway 34. I gathered my tools and headed back. Whatever the lawyer had to say, it could wait until I cleaned up. This was still my home, after all, still my responsibility. At least, that's what I thought. Jameson and Associates occupied a narrow building on Main Street, squeezed between the hardware store and what used to be Miller's Diner. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, but never had reason to go inside. The waiting room smelled like old leather and disappointment. Sarah was already there, sitting straight-backed in a chair by the window. She'd changed since the funeral, traded her black dress for a crisp business suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a way that made her look older, more serious, more like a stranger. "You're late," she said, without looking up from her phone. "Traffic was murder," I replied, though we both knew there wasn't enough traffic in our entire county to delay anyone by more than 30 seconds. Mr. Jameson appeared in his doorway, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of mustache that went out of style before I was born. "Please come in, both of you." His office was exactly what you'd expect from a small-town lawyer. Wood paneling, law books that looked like they hadn't been opened since the Carter administration, and a desk that had seen better decades. He gestured to 2 chairs facing him. "I'll get straight to the point," he said, opening a manila folder. "Your parents' will is straightforward, but I wanted to read it to you both personally." Sarah leaned forward slightly. I noticed she was gripping her purse handle. "The ranch, all livestock, equipment, and associated assets are to be inherited by Sarah Elizabeth Morrison, with the condition that she maintain the property for a minimum of 5 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. "What about Jake?" Sarah asked quietly. Jameson adjusted his glasses. "There's a provision for him as well. Jake will receive a one-time payment of $50,000, Jameson continued, his voice steady and professional, with the understanding that he will vacate the property within 60 days of the will's reading. The room went silent, except for the tick of an old clock on the wall. I stared at the lawyer, waiting for him to say something else, to explain that there had been a mistake, that 25 years of my life meant more than $50,000 and a notice to quit. "There must be some error," I finally managed. "I've been running that ranch since I was 17. I know every inch of that land, every head of cattle, every—" "I'm sorry, Jake." Jameson's expression was genuinely sympathetic. "I drew up this will myself at your parents' request. They were very specific about their wishes." I turned to Sarah. She was staring at her hands, her face pale. "Did you know about this?" She shook her head without looking up. I had no idea. Your parents felt, Jameson continued carefully, that Sarah's business education and financial resources would better serve the ranch's long-term viability. They were concerned about market pressures, modernization needs, and bullshit. The word came out harder than I intended. I've kept that place profitable for a quarter century. Through the drought of '08, the cattle disease outbreak, Jake, please. Sarah finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Guilt, pity. Maybe we can work something out. Maybe I can... No. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Don't do me any favors. If this is what they wanted, then this is what they get. I walked toward the door, then stopped. When do I need to be out? 60 days from today, Jameson said quietly. December 15th. I nodded and left without another word. The drive back to the ranch felt longer than usual. Every familiar landmark, the old oak where Dad taught me to climb, the creek where I'd caught my first fish, the hill where Mom used to take us to watch thunderstorms, seemed to mock me now. Soon, they'd belong to someone else. I pulled into the driveway and sat in my truck for a long time, engine ticking as it cooled. The house looked the same as it had that morning, but everything felt different. The porch where I'd spent countless evenings with Dad, talking about cattle prices and weather patterns. The barn where I'd learned to work with my hands, to fix what was broken, to make things last. The cattle were scattered across the south pasture, black dots against the golden grass. I'd helped birth most of them, nursed the sick ones back to health, knew their temperaments and bloodlines. Now they belonged to Sarah. My phone buzzed, a text from her. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. Inside the house, everything was exactly as Mom had left it. Her coffee mug still sat in the sink from the morning she died. Dad's reading glasses were on the kitchen table next to a farm journal he'd never finish. I'd been meaning to clean up, to put their things away, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It felt too final. Now it didn't matter. Sarah could deal with it. I walked through the room slowly, seeing them with new eyes. The family photos on the mantel showed 3 kids growing up. Sarah in her school clothes, always clean and pressed. Me in work shirts and jeans, usually dirty from whatever project I'd been helping Dad with. Even as children, we'd lived in different worlds. In the last photo, taken at Sarah's college graduation, she stood between Mom and Dad in her cap and gown, beaming. I was there too, off to one side, uncomfortable in the only dress shirt I owned. I climbed the stairs to my childhood bedroom, each step creaking in the familiar pattern I'd known for 30 years. The room hadn't changed much since high school. Same blue walls, same twin bed, same view of the barn and pastures beyond. My rodeo trophies still lined the dresser, gathering dust. I sat on the bed and tried to make sense of what had happened. How had my parents come to this decision? When had they stopped seeing me as their son and started seeing me as just hired help? The memories came flooding back. Dad teaching me to drive the tractor when I was 12. My legs barely reaching the pedals. Mom packing extra sandwiches in my lunch when I worked late during harvest season. The pride in their voices when neighbors complimented the condition of our fences, our cattle, our crops. But there were other memories too. The arguments about college, about my future. You're smart enough for more than this, Mom would say. The ranch will always be here, but opportunities won't. I'd never wanted opportunities. I'd wanted this, the land, the work, the life they'd built. I thought that meant something to them. My phone rang. Sarah again. This time I answered. Jake, please don't hang up. What do you want? I want to explain. I want to... There's nothing to explain. They made their choice. You got what you wanted. I never wanted this, her voice cracked. I never wanted to take the ranch from you. I have a life in Denver, a career, Then sell it to me. Silence stretched between us. Jake, I can't. The will specifies I have to keep it for 5 years minimum. And even if I could, 50,000 wouldn't. I know what it's worth. I hung up. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked the property in the darkness, following paths I could navigate blindfolded. The cattle were settled for the night, dark shapes against darker ground. An owl called from the old cottonwood by the creek. I found myself at Dad's grave in the small family cemetery on the hill behind the house. The headstone was simple granite, just his name and dates. Mom lay beside him, her marker still so new the earth hadn't fully settled. Why? I asked the darkness. 25 years, and this is what I get? The wind rustled through the grass, but it didn't carry any answers. I thought about leaving that night, just packing my truck and driving until I ran out of gas or reasons to keep going. But something held me back. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was the need to understand, or maybe it was the realization that I had nowhere else to go. I'd never lived anywhere but this ranch, never had a job that wasn't connected to this land. My friends were neighbors and fellow ranchers, people whose lives revolved around the same rhythms of seasons and livestock that had defined mine. What was I supposed to do in town? Get a job at the hardware store, the feed mill? Start over at 43 with nothing but $50,000 and a lifetime of skills that only mattered out here? The thought terrified me more than I wanted to admit. As dawn approached, I made my way back to the house. The kitchen light was on, and through the window I saw Sarah sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. She'd driven out from town. I stood in the yard for a long moment, watching her. She looked small and lost in that big kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of our childhood. Finally, I went inside. Couldn't sleep either, Sarah asked, as I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd made. It was too strong, the way city people made it. Not much point in sleeping when your world ends. She winced. Jake, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were planning this. I sat across from her at the table where we'd eaten thousands of meals as children. When's the last time you talked to them? Really talked? Christmas, maybe? I called on their birthdays, sent cards. She trailed off, probably realizing how pathetic that sounded. I talked to them every day, worked beside them, ate dinner with them, took care of them when they got sick. And somehow you're the one they trusted with their legacy. I don't want it, she said quietly. I never wanted the ranch. I wanted out of here from the time I was old enough to understand there was an out to want. Then why didn't you tell them that? She was quiet for a long time, staring into her coffee, because they were proud of me. For the first time in my life, they were proud of what I'd accomplished. My degree, my job, my success in the city. They saw me as someone who could take this place and make it into something bigger, something better. It was already something. It was home. To you, not to me. She looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. I hated it here, Jake. The isolation, the smell, the way everyone knew everyone else's business. I couldn't wait to leave. And now you have to stay for 5 years. She nodded miserably. The will is ironclad. If I don't maintain the property for the full term, it gets sold and the proceeds go to charity, all of it. So we're both trapped. I guess we are. We sat in silence as the sun came up, painting the kitchen walls gold. Outside, the cattle were moving toward the water tank, following their morning routine. Soon they'd need to be moved to fresh pasture. The hay would need to be checked. A dozen other tasks that made up the endless cycle of ranch life. I have an idea, Sarah said suddenly. I looked at her skeptically. What if you stayed? What if we worked together? As what, your hired hand? As my partner. I don't know anything about running a ranch. I wouldn't last a month without help. But you know everything. You could teach me, and I could handle the business side, the finances, the... No. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I'm not going to work for my little sister on land that should have been mine. It wouldn't be like that. We could split everything 50-50. I'd put it in writing, make it legal. When the 5 years are up, we could... I said no. But even as I walked away, part of me was listening. Part of me was calculating. 50-50 of the ranch was better than $50,000 and a bus ticket to nowhere. I spent the day working, checking fences, moving cattle, fixing a broken water line. Physical labor helped clear my head, gave me something to focus on besides the anger and hurt that threatened to consume me. By evening, I'd made my decision. I found Sarah in Dad's office, surrounded by paperwork and looking overwhelmed. She'd changed into jeans and a work shirt, but they were too clean, too new. She looked like she was playing dress-up. "Okay," I said. She looked up, confused. "Okay, what?" "Your proposal. I'll consider it, but I have conditions." Relief flooded her face. "Name them." "First, I want it in writing. Legal documents, not just a handshake. Second, I make all decisions about day-to-day operations. You want to learn? Fine, but I'm not running every choice past someone who doesn't know a bull from a steer." "Agreed. What else?" "Third, if you decide to leave before the 5 years are up, you sign your half over to me. No charity, no selling to strangers. This land stays in the family." She hesitated, then nodded. "Fair enough." The next few weeks fell into an uneasy rhythm. Sarah moved back into her childhood bedroom and tried to learn the basics of ranch life. She was a quick study with the paperwork, budgets, tax records, feed orders, but the physical work was another matter entirely. I watched her struggle to saddle a horse, her city-soft hands already blistering after an hour of fence repair. She complained about the smell, the early mornings, the mud that seemed to follow her everywhere. But she didn't quit. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked one evening as we sat on the porch, both exhausted from a long day of moving cattle. "Honestly, guilt." She pulled off her work gloves and examined her raw palms. "I spent my whole life running from this place. And now I realize I was running from them too. From you, from everything that mattered to them. They were proud of you. Your success in Denver. Were they? Or were they just relieved that one of their kids had made something of themselves?" She looked at me sideways. "They never stopped talking about you, you know. Every phone call it was Jake this and Jake that. How hard you worked, how much you cared about the ranch. Then why? Because they were scared." She interrupted. "Scared that when they died, you'd lose everything. That some corporate farm would come in and buy you out, turn this place into just another piece of industrial agriculture. They thought I had the business sense to protect it." It was the first explanation that made any sense, but it still hurt. They could have talked to me about it. When you were always working, and they were proud. Too proud to admit they needed help figuring out how to save the place they loved. I thought about that as the stars came out. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe this wasn't about choosing her over me. Maybe it was about choosing the ranch over everything else, including our feelings. It didn't make the betrayal hurt less, but it made it comprehensible. By November, we'd settled into something that almost resembled partnership. Sarah handled the books and the business calls, while I managed the livestock and equipment. She was getting better with the physical work, though she still looked like she was playing cowgirl in her spotless jeans and pristine boots. The real test came when we had to make our first major decision together. The cattle market was strong, and we had the option to sell early or hold through winter for potentially higher prices in spring. "What do you think?" Sarah asked, studying the market reports spread across the kitchen table. "Depends on the weather. If we get a hard winter, feed costs will eat up any profit from waiting. But if it's mild, the long-range forecast shows above-average temperatures. Weather forecasts are about as reliable as politicians' promises." She laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her since she'd been back. "So what would Dad have done?" I considered the question seriously. Dad would have sold half now, held half for spring, hedged his bets. "Then that's what we'll do." It was a small moment, but it felt like progress. We were starting to think like partners instead of adversaries. The cattle sale went well. We got a fair price for the animals we sold, and the ones we kept were in good condition for winter. For the first time since the will reading, I felt something like hope. Maybe this could work. Maybe we could honor what our parents had tried to do, even if their method had been clumsy and hurtful. But I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in late November, addressed to Sarah but concerning both of us. It was from Consolidated Agricultural Holdings, a corporate farming operation based in Kansas. They wanted to buy the ranch. "How did they even know it was available?" I asked, reading over Sarah's shoulder. "I don't know. Maybe the will reading was public record." The offer was substantial, more than the ranch was worth on paper, though less than its true value to someone who understood the land. It would be enough for Sarah to pay off the inheritance taxes and walk away with a significant profit. "You're considering it," I said, watching her face. "I'm not. But..." She set the letter down carefully. "Jake, I'm hemorrhaging money. My job in Denver, my apartment, my life there. I'm paying for all of that plus living expenses here. And the ranch isn't profitable enough to support two people, not the way we're running it." She was right, and we both knew it. The ranch had always been a modest operation, providing a living for our parents, but not much more. Splitting that income two ways left both of us struggling. "We could expand," I suggested, "take out loans, buy more cattle, improve the infrastructure." "With what collateral? The ranch is already mortgaged to pay for Dad's medical bills before he died." I hadn't known about the mortgage. Another thing our parents had kept from me. "How much do we owe?" "Enough that this offer would barely cover it, the inheritance taxes, and leave us with something to split." I stared at the letter, seeing our future dissolving into corporate efficiency and profit margins. "There has to be another way." "Maybe there is," Sarah said quietly, "but I need you to be realistic about our options. We can't run this place on love and good intentions." That night, I lay awake thinking about the offer. It would solve Sarah's financial problems and give me enough money to start over somewhere else. But it would also mean the end of everything our family had built over 3 generations. I thought about our great-grandfather, who'd homesteaded this land with nothing but determination and a wagon full of dreams. About our grandfather, who'd survived the Dust Bowl and the Depression. About our parents, who'd worked themselves to death trying to preserve what they'd inherited. Was I really going to be the one to let it all slip away? The argument started over something small, Sarah's suggestion that we hire a management company to handle the day-to-day operations while she returned to Denver. But it quickly escalated into everything we'd been avoiding since she came back. "You don't get it," I said, my voice rising. "This isn't just a business to me. It's my life. It's everything I am." "And that's the problem," she shot back. "You've never been anything else. You've never tried to be anything else. You're so afraid of leaving this place that you've made yourself a prisoner here." I chose to stay. I chose this life. Did you? Or did you just never have the courage to choose anything else? The words hit harder than any physical blow. At least I didn't run away the first chance I got. I didn't run away. I grew up. I made something of myself instead of hiding behind tradition and stubbornness. We stood facing each other in the kitchen, both breathing hard, both saying things we couldn't take back. "You want to know why Mom and Dad left you the ranch?" I said finally. "Because they knew I'd never leave it. They knew I'd sacrifice everything to keep it going, even if it killed me. But you're practical. You're smart enough to know when to cut your losses. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were. Sarah left that night, driving back to town without another word. I stood on the porch and watched her taillights disappear, wondering if I'd just lost my last chance to save the ranch. The next morning, I called the number on the corporate letter. The meeting with Consolidated Agricultural Holdings was scheduled for the following week. I spent the intervening days walking the property, saying goodbye to places that had defined my life. The creek where I'd learned to fish, the pasture where I'd broken my arm falling off my first horse. The hill where our parents were buried. I was standing at their graves when Sarah's car pulled up the drive. She got out slowly, like she wasn't sure of her welcome. "I thought you'd gone back to Denver," I said when she reached me. "I tried. I made it as far as the county line before I turned around." She stood beside me, looking down at the simple headstones. I called the corporate people, told them we weren't interested. "Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." This is what they wanted, Jake. Not the money, not the easy way out. They wanted the land to stay in the family, to stay alive. They trusted us to figure out how to make that happen. We tried. It's not working. Then we try harder. We get creative. We find investors. We diversify. We do whatever it takes. She turned to face me. "I talked to my boss in Denver. I can work remotely, at least part-time. It won't be easy, but it's possible." "Why? Why are you willing to do this?" She was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the land that stretched to the horizon. "Because this is home. I spent so many years running from it that I forgot what I was running to. But standing here now, I remember what it felt like to belong somewhere." We walked back to the house together as the sun set behind us, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. There was still a lot to figure out. Finances, logistics, the 1,000 details of making a partnership work. But for the first time since the will reading, I felt like we might actually have a chance. The ranch would survive. Our family's legacy would continue. And maybe, just maybe, Sarah and I would finally understand what our parents had been trying to tell us all along. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a long road from that devastating day in the lawyer's office to where I am now, but I've learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can also be the best thing, if you're willing to see it that way. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know where you're listening from and what you thought of this journey. And if this story touched you in some way, please consider subscribing to the channel. There are more stories to tell, more lessons to share, and I'd be honored to have you along for the ride. Until next time, remember that home isn't just a place. It's the people who choose to build something together, even when the odds are against them.